The first scream didn't come from the students clustered around the long bench of gleaming equipment. It came from the instructor. That was unusual enough to make everyone whip their heads toward the far end of the training hall, because Professor Yarvak was a 12-foot reptilian colossus with scales like stone plates and a jaw full of knives. He had once bragged that he had held off 3 Trigoran warbeasts with nothing but a blunt vibroblade and bad temper. For someone like him to make a sound that was perilously close to shrieking, well, that made everyone take notice. The reason for his outburst lumbered through the sliding blast doors on all 6 legs, claws clattering against the metal tiles. It was a predator, though not one from any docile classification. No, this was a razorlith, a creature bred on the storm worlds of Varshak, where even the clouds had been rumored to have teeth. Standing taller than the average sapient, and stretching long enough to fill an entire corridor, its body looked like a grotesque blend of insect, wolf, and nightmare. Segmented chitin plates bristled with hooked ridges, eyes glowed amber with hunger, and its maw gaped with rows of serrated teeth. A low growl rolled from its chest, the sound so deep it vibrated the walls. Every alien student in the hall knew what they were supposed to do. Their training scenarios had covered this exact possibility. When a razorlith is released, survival drills begin immediately. You flee, you scatter, you hide, you activate the protective fields if you can reach them. Already, the group dissolved into chaos. A 3-eyed Corlean tripped over its own tail as it scrambled for cover. A winged Valari slammed into the ceiling, leaving feathers drifting down like panicked confetti. Even the professor, his dignity already lost to that first scream, was backing away with his claws raised defensively. But not everyone moved with the herd. Near the edge of the hall, standing with arms crossed and an expression of profound boredom, was a human. Alex Ward, transfer student, youngest recruit in the interspecies diplomacy and defense program, and frequent source of exasperation for his instructors, squinted at the beast with an expression that no sane being would wear. While others shivered, while some wept, Alex frowned. He tilted his head. Then, to the horror of everyone still present, he muttered, loud enough to carry across the hall. "Huh! That's it! Where's the fur?" The razorlith's growl deepened, steam rising from vents along its neck as it scented prey. The professor barked something guttural in his own tongue, which roughly translated to, "Activate the barrier field, you fools!" But most of the barrier field operators had already fled. The beast's talons clicked closer. And Alex stepped forward. The aliens could not comprehend it. They were halfway through vaulting over safety rails or fumbling with emergency comms when the human advanced as though approaching a stray neighborhood dog. He crouched slightly, squinting harder at the predator's chitin plates. Then he sighed. "You've got the teeth, sure. The glowing eyes, the scary bug-wolf vibe. But where's the fluff? Not even a tuft? That's just disappointing." The room collectively froze, even the predator itself. It blinked, amber gaze settling on the lone figure who did not tremble, did not flee. The silence stretched long enough for the Valari clinging to the ceiling beams to whisper frantically. "Is he trying to court death?" The predator lowered its head, nostrils flaring. A single step forward shook the hall. Its claws scraped sparks against the floor. Alex stood his ground, hands resting on his knees as if he were preparing to whistle. Then, to the utter astonishment of every witness, he spoke again in that maddeningly casual tone. "Come on, big guy. Let's see the tail wag." The professor's eyes bulged. "Human! You will be devoured! That creature has consumed entire colonies." Alex shrugged without looking back. Yeah, sure. But has anyone actually petted one? That's the real question." And that was the moment the conflict truly began. Because up until then, the razorlith was merely following instinct. Predator enters, prey flees, chase ensues. But Alex's sheer refusal to play along disrupted the natural script. It snarled, confused, lowering its head until its breath gusted hot and sour across Alex's face. The human wrinkled his nose but didn't flinch. The other students watched in paralyzed disbelief. The Corlean muttered a prayer to 6 different deities. The Valari pressed its feathers flat, as though trying to erase itself from existence. And the professor, still retreating but unwilling to abandon all of his charges, bellowed, "Ward! Retreat immediately or you will doom us all!" But Alex only chuckled. "You know, back home, the bigger the dog, the gentler they usually were. Bet you're just misunderstood, huh?" The razorlith opened its jaws, each tooth longer than Alex's fingers. The roar that followed was deafening, a sound designed to rupture courage, to grind instinct into terror. The students shrieked again, some bolting through auxiliary doors. The professor braced against the sonic blast, shielding his ears. Alex winced at the volume but, infuriatingly, impossibly, smiled. Yeah, very scary. 10 out of 10 for effort. But seriously, not even a bit of fluff on the airs. What a letdown. The beast snapped its jaws inches from his torso. Drool splattered across the floor. One claw lifted, curving sharp enough to slice a starship hull. For the first time, Alex's expression shifted, not into fear, but into calculation. He glanced at the walls, at the students cowering behind upturned benches, at the professor slowly circling to reach the emergency controls. His mind ticked over options the way only a human mind could, improvisation as instinct, recklessness as strategy. The razorlith lunged. Alex moved, not backward but sideways, toward it. He ducked under the sweeping claw, close enough to smell the acrid stench of its armored hide. His hand slapped against its chitin with an audible thunk. And as though he just discovered a brand new toy, his grin widened. Solid plating! But still no fluff. Man, nature really missed a trick here. The professor nearly fainted. The Valari wailed. The Corleone fainted outright. And the razorlith, utterly bewildered by prey that acted like no prey it had ever seen, hesitated. That hesitation was all it took for the first seeds of something dangerous to sprout. Because the predator wasn't just hunting anymore. It was curious. And Alex, still rubbing the side of its armored jaw with the same casualness someone might use to pat a horse, leaned closer and whispered, "Don't worry, buddy. We'll find your fluffy side yet." The predator's hesitation was only temporary. Its instincts, forged over millennia of slaughter on Varshak, pushed it toward violence. Curiosity warred with hunger, and hunger nearly won. The razorlith's jaw flexed, drool spilling onto the floor like acid. One wrong move, one flicker of prey fear, and the beast would rend Alex in half. The professor saw it happening. He'd witnessed cadets shredded in simulations before, but this would be real. His claws flexed uselessly, because the barrier controls were still across the room and the razorlith had chosen its target. But Alex didn't run. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice calm, almost cheerful. "You're confused, huh? Don't worry, big guy, I confuse a lot of people. Comes with being human." The razorlith's head tilted. Its massive tongue flicked out, tasting the air, sweeping dangerously close to Alex's arm. Every student in the room held their breath. And then Alex did the unthinkable. He reached out and scratched beneath the predator's chin. The reaction was immediate. The razorlith froze, amber eyes narrowing. Its growl cut off into a sound that was more like a puzzled rumble. It did not retreat, but it did not bite either. Its claws hovered, uncertain. From the rafters, the Valari whispered hoarsely, "What is he doing? That thing eats plasma casters for breakfast." Alex, grinning like a lunatic, answered without looking away. "Back home, dogs love this spot. Maybe it's universal, huh?" The professor's scales twitched in disbelief. "You are gambling with your species' only chance at survival. Step back, human!" But Alex shook his head. "Nah. He's fine. Just cranky. You guys are giving him bad vibes." Bad vibes. That phrase didn't even translate cleanly into half the languages spoken in the hall. Yet somehow, even without linguistic clarity, every alien present understood the meaning. The human thought the razorlith was simply in a mood. And disturbingly, the beast didn't immediately prove him wrong. Instead, it pulled its head back a fraction, studied Alex with glowing eyes, and let out a low, chuffing huff of breath. Alex lit up like someone had handed him a prize. "See? He's talking. Told you he wasn't all bad. The professor groaned in horror. He is not talking, you imbecile! He is marking you as prey! The razorlet snapped its jaws suddenly, the sound like a steel trap slamming shut. Every student yelped. Alex? He only stepped sideways, clapping his hands together. Okay, message received. Not in the mood for chin scratches. How about we find your fluffy zone? Back ridge? Belly? Oh, you don't look like a belly scratch guy. The predator lunged, this time with serious intent. Alex darted backward, narrowly avoiding the slicing talons that tore gouges into the floor. He skidded to a halt near the equipment benches, breathing harder now but still grinning like an idiot. Phew! You're fast. I like it. Keeps me on my toes. But man, still no fluff. What a tragedy. The professor's patience snapped. Ward! This is not a petting zoo. That is a military-grade predator introduced for combat scenarios. It will not be pacified by belly rubs. Alex shrugged, dodging another swipe. Hey, don't knock it until you've tried it. You guys train with weapons, right? Humans train with snacks and cuddles. Works wonders on Earth. Another roar split the air. The razorlith lunged again, this time smashing through a row of benches to reach him. Metal shrieked as the equipment shattered, sparks flying. The students screamed, scattering further. One of the Corleone twins shouted, Professor, the exits are sealed. It's hurting us. The professor swore in 3 languages. The razorlith wasn't just attacking randomly anymore. It was adapting, driving the survivors toward the far corner where there'd be no escape. The only one not moving that way was Alex, who deliberately veered in the opposite direction, clapping his hands to draw its attention. Hey, over here! Come on, big guy, leave them alone. I'm way more interesting. The razorlith's head snapped toward him. Hunger flared in its eyes. It crouched, muscles rippling, preparing to pounce. Alex grinned, and grabbed a handful of scattered equipment from the shattered bench. He hurled a metal canister at the floor. It clanged, rolled, and burst in a puff of blue mist. The razorlith flinched, momentarily blinded by the vapor. Ha! Didn't like that, did ya? Alex called. Yeah, thought so. Guess you're not a fan of spicy air. The professor blinked. The human wasn't just insane, he was improvising. Using random tools as deterrents, as distractions. Not part of any drill, but effective. The razorlith shook its head, dispersing the mist. Its attention locked onto Alex again. It growled, low and furious. Oh! Alex muttered. Guess I poked the wasp nest. All right, buddy. Round 2. He sprinted across the hall, weaving between wrecked benches. The predator thundered after him, claws carving furrows into the floor. The sheer speed of it was terrifying. It should have caught him instantly. But Alex's reflexes, honed from years of chaotic sports and reckless dares, carried him just ahead of those snapping jaws. Come on! He whooped. Bet you can't tag me! The Valari clutched its head feathers in disbelief. He's playing with it. Indeed he was. Every near miss became a twisted game of chase, Alex darting left when the razorlith expected right, vaulting over debris, sliding under its claws. Sweat poured down his face, but his grin never faltered. Each dodge bought the other students more time to cluster behind the professor. But it couldn't last forever. The razorlith, frustrated beyond measure, unleashed a sonic screech that rattled every bone in the room. Alex staggered, ears ringing. The beast seized the opening, leaping high, claws outstretched. Alex! The professor roared, finally using his given name. The human looked up, saw death descending, and did something no one expected. He dropped flat onto his back, arms out like a man about to make a snow angel. The razorlith landed straddling him, claws smashing down on either side, teeth snapping inches from his throat. Every student screamed. And Alex laughed. Whoa-ho-ho! Close one! You almost got me, big guy! The predator's jaws gaped wider. This time, no trick, no dodge, no mist, just raw hunger. The professor began sprinting forward, claws raised, knowing he'd be too late. But Alex reached up, hand trembling only slightly, and tapped the razorlith's nose. Boop! The beast froze. Its amber eyes crossed ever so slightly as it tried to focus on the strange, brazen human beneath it. Confusion flooded its features. The professor skidded to a halt, dumbstruck. The students gaped. Alex, breathing hard but still grinning, whispered, "See? Not so scary when you get to know each other." The razorlith let out a sound no one expected, a rumbling chuff, not unlike the noise a massive cat might make when puzzled. It pulled its head back, tilting to the side, almost bemused. Alex sat up slowly, patting its armored foreleg. "Good boy. Still wish you had fluff, though. Would make this way cozier." For the first time in the Academy's long history, a razorlith didn't immediately slaughter the trainees it was unleashed upon. Instead, it stared at one human in something dangerously close to fascination. The professor's jaw worked soundlessly. He had trained soldiers for decades, had taught them to fear and respect predators of every kind. But this defied everything. And as the predator slowly stepped back, still watching Alex with those glowing eyes, the professor realized the real problem. It wasn't that the razorlith might kill them all. It was that the razorlith might decide it liked the human. And that would be far, far worse. The training hall smelled of ozone, sweat, and the sour tang of predator musk. The razorlith loomed in the middle, massive body blocking the only clear path to the emergency exits. Its eyes glowed like molten amber as it tracked every twitch of the human who had refused to run. For a few miraculous minutes, it had hesitated, fascinated, confused, even tolerant of Alex's reckless proximity. But predators did not stop being predators for long. Hunger crept back into those glowing eyes, twitching into its stance, hardening the ridges of its armored body. Its claws flexed against the floor with the scraping rhythm of impatience. The students saw the change first. The Valari, still perched high in the rafters, gasped. The Corleone twin whimpered. "Professor, it's resetting its hunt instincts." Professor Uarvac already knew. His frill pressed flat against his skull, every instinct in his battle-hardened body screaming fight or die. His voice came out in a guttural rasp. "Ward! Get away from it! The beast will not hold itself back much longer." Alex, standing with his hands on his hips and a faint smear of drool drying on his jacket, tilted his head at the razorlith. "Ah, come on, he's just figuring me out. Takes time. You don't rush friendship." The razorlith hissed, claws gouging deeper trenches in the floor. Alex's grin faltered for the first time. His mind, quick as a flicked switchblade, ran the odds. This wasn't play anymore. The predator was deciding if it should end the curiosity experiment and go back to what it knew best, killing. "All right, big guy," Alex muttered under his breath. "Guess we're doing this the hard way." The razorlith lunged. Its bulk was a storm of claws and teeth, every muscle coiled to crush, rend, devour. The professor roared a warning, the students screamed, and Alex, laughing breathlessly, because panic never helped anyone, threw himself sideways, rolling beneath a slashing talon. Metal shrieked as the floor split open where he'd been standing. "Whoa-ho-ho!" Alex yelled, springing up. "Careful! You'll scratch the paint!" The predator whirled on him instantly, jaws snapping. Its teeth clashed with sparks as they clamped down on a toppled equipment bench instead of his torso. The metal bent like wax. The students huddled together, panic rising. "He can't keep dodging forever," the Valari wailed. Alex heard them but didn't answer. He knew they were right. He was running on adrenaline and instinct, and his body already ached from near misses. His heart pounded like a drumline in his chest. But stopping wasn't an option. "Come on then!" he shouted, voice cracking with wild energy. "You want me? Gotta earn it!" He grabbed another stray canister from the wreckage and hurled it at the predator's snout. It clanged harmlessly off, but the razorless snarled, snapping its head toward him with renewed fury. Perfect. Still focused on him. Still leaving the others alone. The professor realized the insane truth. Alex wasn't just improvising to survive. He was deliberately baiting the razorlith, keeping it locked onto him so the rest wouldn't be slaughtered. That realization made his chest tighten. The human wasn't just reckless, he was selfless. But that selflessness could only end in one way if no miracle arrived. The razorlith slammed its tail, a bladed whip, across the floor. Alex leapt, barely clearing the strike, landing hard on his shoulder. Pain shot through his arm, but he rolled, scrambling back to his feet. The beast advanced relentlessly, amber eyes blazing. "You're persistent," Alex panted. "I'll give you that. 10 out of 10 for effort." The predator lunged again. Alex sprinted toward the wreckage of a shattered control panel, diving behind it just as the razorlith's claws punched straight through the metal. Sparks burst around him, the panel collapsing like foil. He stumbled clear, lungs burning. The professor bellowed, voice desperate now. "Ward! You cannot tame it! No species has ever done so!" Alex shot him a grin that was more teeth than humor. "Guess there's a first time for everything." The razorlith slammed forward again. Alex had no time to dodge, no cover left. He did the only thing his brain spat out in the split-second gap between death and desperation. He ran toward the predator, diving low, sliding beneath its belly as claws raked just above his back. The students shrieked as he vanished under the beast. The razorlith snapped around, confused, twisting to follow his scent. Alex scrambled up behind it, grabbing onto the serrated ridges of its tail with both hands. "Yeehaw!" he hollered, clinging for dear life as the predator thrashed. "Who's a good nightmare bugwolf, huh? You are! Yes, you are!" The hall became chaos. The razorlith roared, bucking violently, tail whipping in every direction as Alex rode it like a rodeo bull. The students could only gape, half certain they were witnessing either the bravest act in academy history or the dumbest. Possibly both. The professor felt his jaw sag open. "By the void!" Alex tightened his grip, every muscle screaming as the razorlith reared and slammed itself against the walls, trying to dislodge him. Metal panels caved. Sparks rained. Each impact rattled his bones, but he held on, teeth clenched in manic determination. "All right, buddy!" he shouted over the chaos. "You got power, you got speed, you got the nightmare look down pat. But you still don't have fluff, and that's a deal breaker for being scary in my book." The razorlith roared so loud the ceiling cracked. The professor realized the ceiling wasn't going to hold. The beast's thrashing would bring the entire hall down. He lunged for the auxiliary barrier controls, smashing his claws against the panel. Sparks flew, systems groaned. The emergency field crackled half-active, shimmering faintly around the room. But it wasn't complete. The predator was still free. And Alex was still riding it. "Ward!" Yarvak roared, his voice torn between fury and admiration. "Release yourself before it kills you!" Alex's laugh was wild, unhinged. "Not a chance. I've come this far. I'm not bailing until I at least find out if this guy likes belly rubs." The razorlith slammed its tail into the wall, finally flinging him loose. Alex smashed into the floor, skidding across debris. Pain blossomed white-hot across his ribs. He coughed, vision swimming, ears ringing from the impact. The predator turned on him instantly, jaws dripping, claws poised. No hesitation this time. Hunger had fully won. The students screamed. The professor started forward, knowing he'd be too late. Alex, lying battered on the floor, looked up into the glowing maw descending toward him. For one flicker of a moment, his reckless grin softened into something else, an odd, quiet defiance. "Sorry, big guy," he whispered. "Guess fluff was too much to ask for." The razorlith lunged. And stopped. Not because of the professor. Not because of the students. Not because of the half-active barrier. It stopped because Alex, with the last of his strength, had reached up and pressed his palm flat against its chest plate. Right over where its heartbeat thundered. The razorlith froze, confused again, its instincts at war. This prey was not running. Not fighting. Just touching. Alex met its glowing eyes with unwavering stubbornness. You're not just teeth and claws. Prove me right. For one breathless moment, the hall was silent. The predator loomed, death inches away, every witness trembling. And the razorlith hesitated. Its jaws gaped. Its breath gusted hot. Its claws flexed. But it did not strike. Instead, it chuffed again, that puzzled, almost feline sound, and drew back a fraction, amber gaze locked onto the human who refused to fear it. The professor stared, scales prickling in disbelief. Impossible! The students gawked, unable to process what they were seeing. And Alex, chest heaving, gave a broken laugh. Knew it! Everyone's got a soft side, even if it isn't fluffy. But deep down, he knew the fight wasn't over. The razorlith hadn't chosen peace. Not yet. It was still testing him. And the final test was coming. The razorlith loomed over Alex, still frozen in that fragile, impossible moment where instinct and curiosity warred within its amber eyes. Its heartbeat pounded against his palm, strong enough to vibrate his bones. Around them, the training hall was a ruin, smashed benches, sparking consoles, debris scattered like bones in a predator's den. The students huddled together, wide-eyed. Professor Yarvak, battle-hardened and unflappable in all other situations, had his claws half-raised, unsure whether to strike or pray. And Alex, battered, bruised, breathing hard, grinned up at the nightmare like it was just a weird stray dog. "All right, big guy," he rasped, voice raw but steady. "You've had your fun. But if we're gonna make this work, you gotta meet me halfway." The predator's jaw twitched. Drool hissed where it splattered onto the floor beside his head. Its claws flexed again, scraping metal, carving sparks. Every instinct in the room screamed that the human was about to die. Instead, Alex sat up slowly, wincing, and fished into the pocket of his torn jacket. The students gasped. Yarvak snarled. "What are you doing, human?" Alex pulled out a ration bar. Not a weapon. Not a tool. Just a crumpled, half-melted human snack bar, wrapped in shiny foil. "Diplomacy," Alex said simply, peeling it open with his teeth. The scent of synthetic chocolate and protein wafted into the air. He broke the bar in half, holding up a piece to the razorlith like a man offering a treat to a very large, very confused dog. The entire hall went dead silent. The razorlith's nostrils flared. It lowered its head slightly, amber eyes narrowing at the tiny offering. Its tongue flicked out, brushing Alex's hand, tasting the air. "That's it," Alex whispered, calm but firm. "Not everything has to end with teeth, buddy. Try something new." The predator opened its jaws. Students screamed. The professor lunged forward with a roar. And the razorlith delicately snapped the ration bar from Alex's fingers. The sound was absurdly anticlimactic. A crunch, a swallow, a low rumble from its chest that wasn't quite a growl. Alex grinned, leaning back on one elbow. "See? You can try new things. Bet that's the first snack you've had that didn't scream, huh?" The professor froze mid-charge, staring in absolute disbelief. The students gawked, mouths open. The razorlith tilted its head, studying the human again, tongue flicking over its jagged teeth. Then, impossibly, it lowered its massive body to the ground, legs folding until its armored chest thudded against the floor. Its glowing eyes never left Alex. The human's grin softened. "Yeah. Thought so. You're not just a monster, are you? You're just lonely. No one's ever tried to see you as more than a weapon." Yarvak's frill twitched. "This is blasphemy. That thing has consumed battalions. Entire battalions. It does not bond. It does not submit." Alex shrugged, still panting. "Guess nobody ever gave it a snack before." Laughter, hysterical, half-panicked, bubbled from the Valari in the rafters. The Corleone twins clung to each other, muttering prayers that now sounded more like apologies. The razorlith, apparently unbothered by existential crises, nudged its massive snout toward Alex. The human laughed weakly and gave it a pat between the eyes. His hand slid over chitin instead of fur, but his grin didn't fade. "Still not fluffy," he said. But I'll take what I can get. The professor finally stomped forward, claws clicking against the broken floor. His massive frame towered over Alex, frill raised in outrage. This defies every law of nature, every principle of training. The razorlith was meant to test your fear response, to weed out the weak, to kill those unworthy. Alex leaned back against the predator's plated side, wincing but refusing to move. Yeah, see, that's your problem. You keep trying to use monsters as tests. But sometimes they just need a little humanity. The razorlith gave a low, rumbling chuff, almost like agreement. Its tail swished once, dangerously close to decapitating a bench, but no strike came. Uarvak's voice cracked. Do you realize what this means? Alex smirked. That I just tamed your murder puppy? Yeah, I'm aware. The hall exploded into chaos. Students shouted, some in terror, some in awe. A few laughed in disbelief, while others whispered frantically about rewriting academy manuals. Uarvak, torn between rage and stunned amazement, dragged both hands down his scarred muzzle. This will bring ruin to the program. It will invalidate decades of... The razorlith, apparently tired of the noise, swung its head toward the professor and huffed, a blast of hot, rank breath that flattened his frill. Uarvak staggered back, choking on outrage. Alex laughed, slapping the predator's armored hide. Easy, boy. He's just cranky. The professor pointed one massive claw at him. You are a menace, Ward. A reckless, undisciplined. The razorlith chuffed again, louder this time, as if echoing Alex's laughter. Uarvak's jaw snapped shut. Alex grinned at the stunned crowd. See? He agrees with me. The tension that had held the room hostage began to crack, not into violence, but into absurdity. Students exchanged bewildered looks. The Velari actually laughed until it slid halfway out of the rafters. Even the usually solemn Corleone twins blinked at each other and muttered, Maybe he's right. The predator lowered its head again, pressing its massive snout against Alex's shoulder. The human winced at the weight but reached up, rubbing the smooth plate between its eyes. There you go, big guy, he whispered. Not so scary when someone gives you a chance, huh? Silence stretched, fragile and surreal. And then, with a sigh, the razorlith curled its massive body around him, like a monstrous guard dog protecting its chosen human. The room erupted into pandemonium. Uarvak's roars of disbelief clashed with student shrieks, laughter, and exclamations. Alex, half crushed but grinning like a fool, gave the predator one last pat. Not fluffy, he said again. But hey, cuddly enough. Hours later, when the Academy's officials finally arrived to contain the razorlith, they found the hall wrecked, the students wide-eyed, and the professor trembling with indignation. And in the middle, sprawled against the nightmare beast like it was a beanbag chair, was one very smug human. Academy records would later call it the most catastrophic training breach in 2 centuries. Students would whisper about it for years. Some would insist Alex Ward was mad, others that he was a genius, and more than a few that he was both. But one fact remained indisputable. When everyone else ran from the predator, the human stayed. And somehow, impossibly, he made it his friend.